This is Barbara Ann Rosenberg, your roving reporter, and this week we're going to Maine. Now think Maine, you think lobsters. Think Rockland, Maine, you think lobsters. You also have to think art. They have a wonderful museum. They have a great bed and breakfast. They have everything. It's becoming the most adorable location.
Maine, you folks from Philadelphia. We've moved to Rockland, Maine, which is a very traditional community where they still fish for lobsters, and we're at a restaurant on the edge of the water called The Landings. Now we're trying to decide what to eat for dinner. They have lobster, and they have mussels, and they have crab cakes, and they have steamers, and everything you can think of on the Maine type of seafood. So we'll decide what we're going to have pretty soon, and we'll share it with you. I hope you'll enjoy it. I'm sure we will. We're going to have some choices of things. Some steamers.
Sounds like a Maine thing.
Sounds like a Maine thing. How about some crab cakes? Tell me about the crab cakes.
Made locally, fresh sweet Maine crab, you can't beat them.
Can't beat them. Well, I think we'll try some of those and some haddock. I haven't had haddock in years.
Well, you came to the right place then.
Okay. We're at the Landings. We're going to have a great time. Tell me your name.
My name is Jan, and I'll be your waitress tonight, and I hope you have a really good time.
Thank you. Now, guys, you're going to have a real Maine experience. You're going to have a bucket of steamers. Now, these steamer clams are nothing like what we have in Philadelphia. These are what we call, I don't want to use the vernacular for it, but they're funny little clams where you have to peel the necks. And I'll give you a demonstration if you'll let me go off the Now I'm going to take this little clam that I've just peeled the neck of, and I'm going to dip it in the broth, and I'm going to dip it in the butter, and if you really insist, I'll have some lemon, but I love them just like this. Come on along. We are at the quintessential bed and breakfast, the Lime Rock Inn in Rockland, Maine. I will tell you, this is what bed and breakfasting should be all about, and seldom is. But this is a delightful experience. The town is wonderful. The people who run this are wonderful. The inn is wonderful and very comfortable. And I just had a blueberry muffin, a little teeny one made with real blueberries, the kind that they pick, not the kind they grow. And I'm going inside and have some more. Would you like to come with me? Well, sitting here at this delightful breakfast with some charming people from Washington, D.C. Yes? Tell us your name, would you? Tracy Ray.
And David Ray.
And David Ray, who are guests here at the Lime Rock Inn. And I must tell you, we're suffering for breakfast this morning, however. We're having lemon granito and fresh fruit with a beautiful nasturtium and mini blues. This is what I was talking about just a few minutes ago, and I wish you were here eating them with me. They are absolutely delicious. Come on, let's eat. Well, just in case you have any question about where we are, right by this great big sculpture of a lobster, this is the symbol of Rockland, Maine. And now we're on our way to go out on the lobster boat. I've even got a Maine lobster cap to wear. So we'll see you. Anybody who hasn't been in hiding knows that Maine lobster is the best lobster. I'm on the Three Cheers. What a name for a lobster boat. With Captain Nick Lobkowitz. Is that right?
Yep, that's correct.
And Sue Barber from the Maine Lobster Council. So we're going out on a little cruise here and try to pull up some lobster traps I hope we don't get skunked.
Well, I hope so too, but you never know. It can be a touchy business, so we'll find out when we get there.
Okay, that's what we're going to do. Leave the dock and go out and search for lobsters. This is the fanciest lobster boat I've ever been on. I don't know why that is, and he knows what color his are, and he pulls up the trap. What have we got? We've got a couple of crabs, but I don't see any lobsters in this one.
No lobsters in this one, but a few small... This isn't going to work. No lobsters here, but a few small crabs. When they get a little bigger than this, they're worthwhile to keep, okay? You see, he's missing a claw. They can grow these back. They'll regenerate them, okay? We don't pass them around, and that's why, okay?
Pulling up another one. Let's see what our luck is going to be this time. I think we've got one. Yes, we do. We're in luck. We've got a lobster. Or two, maybe. Kind of little, but he's going to...
We're after right here. Now, you can't keep every lobster you catch. There's a lot of things you got to check for, and I'll show you. The first thing is minimum size. The state minimum size is 3 1/4 inches, and you're measuring the carapace length on the lobster. That's this part right here. This brass gauge represents 3 1/4 inches, and you hook him right in behind the eye socket, like that, and he'll move his eyes out of the way. You bring that measure back along the center line. If this part of the gauge goes past that first joint where the body meets the tail, lobster's too small, and you got to throw him back. Okay, this guy's too small, as you can see.
We don't get to eat him for lunch.
That's right. Next year, they figure a lobster's about 7 years old when they reach that minimum size. Okay?
Well, I'm not going to wait a year. I hope I get to eat one before that. While we're out here lobstering, we're right in the shadow of one of the beautiful traditional lighthouses. This state of Maine, this coast of Maine, is such a gorgeous area. It sparkles. It's so clear. It's so wonderful. It's a marvelous place to come. I love it. Well, here we go again. Every time we try, now you know why lobsters are kind of expensive. These are elusive little creatures, and you can't grow them in captivity. You have to wait for them to come into your traps. Oops, skunks again. I don't believe... Oh, no, we have one little tiny one. He's not going to be a keeper, though. Too bad. Couple of crabs. Well...
I'm not too proud of him, but he's legal, so I'm going to keep him, okay?
Good, we got one.
It's a girl.
How do we know it's a girl?
I'm going to show you later. Okay? Now, what this does, it's not so much for people protection, but it's for lobster protection. These guys, they're scavengers down there, but what they like better than anything else is a lobster dinner. And the big ones will pick on the little ones. Now, we're going to put these guys together in buckets and tanks and whatnot, and crowd them all together. And you've seen them in restaurants probably. They all have bands on their claws. If they didn't, there'd be one big lobster left at the end of the day and a bunch of shredded up little ones. So that's why we do this. It protects them from each other. Small lobsters, we've got a minimum gauge. We've got the escape vents in the trap, okay? This is all in favor of small lobsters. Maine also protects big lobsters. Now, on the back side of this gauge is a 5-inch measure. Now, anything that exceeds this is also protected and must be thrown back.
If they're too big, you send them back too?
Too big. If they're bigger than 5 inches, and that's a big lobster, it might be 4.5 pounds or more to exceed that.
Okay, well, if it's that big, I guess maybe I don't want it anyway.
That's because they feel that these lobsters, when they get that size, they breed more often and have greater numbers of young. So, and either that or it's a reward for getting old and not getting
I'm in favor of that.
So, we're in the season, late in the second half of the summer is the shedding season. And that's when the lobsters migrate in from deep water. They've spent the winter out in deep water, down in the mud, and they come into the shallow water where we are in the summer, and they shed or molt. And what happens is they grow out of their old shell. This joint right here splits open, and that lobster kind of doubles up and wiggles out of that opening, and it brings the claws and the tail and legs, everything right with them. When they're all done, you got a brand new lobster and an empty shell. Now the new shell is already on that lobster, except it's very, very soft and thin. You can poke your finger right through a lobster when they're that soft. And they're very vulnerable down there as well when they're that soft to other lobsters, crabs, just about anything can kill a lobster when they're at that stage. So what they do to help that new shell toughen up is they eat the old shell. It's got calcium and other goodies in it that help toughen up that new shell. And then what they also do after that is they hide out for a couple of weeks. And they find a rock and crawl under there or down a hole or a crack or someplace where nothing can bother them. And they just lay in there for a couple of weeks and do nothing while that new shell hardens up a little bit. That's why there's so many traps up against the breakwater where we just were. All those granite blocks down there are all full of lobsters waiting for those shells to harden up. Now once they toughen up a little bit, they get hungry, they get active, and they're going to come out of there and hopefully crawl in somebody's trap.
We're going to find out now about the difference between the boys and the girls. Now, watch closely, folks.
Under the lobster's tail, they have these little flippers they call swimmerettes, and you have to check the very first pair right behind the two back legs. Now, this is a male lobster here, and you look at that first pair of swimmerettes. They're big and bony, and you see a couple of knuckles on there, okay? Now, on the female, they're just a couple of little whiskers, okay? That's the difference, okay?
Now you can win all your bets at the bar, guys. Well, now I'm going to select the lobster before I get a chance to eat it. They're all kept in these holding tanks in seawater, I presume. Want to come over here and talk to me? This is the wife of the Lobster Council president, is that right?
The president of Maine Lobstermen Association.
Yes. And this is a lobstering family, evidently, where you all the men in the family fish and the women?
Right. No, the women have really run the restaurant.
Okay, and I'm going to tell you, this is a lobster in the rough restaurant. When they talk about lobster in the rough in Maine, this is exactly what they talk about. And these are the three they've picked out for us to have for lunch today. So we'll go outside and give them a try in a few minutes. Come and watch. Eat them. This is Waterman's Beach, right out here where they bring in the lobsters commercially. And we're on a big high tide now. It's kind of low tide, I'm sorry to say, but saying the tide is a big tide, about 10 feet around here. You see all the little islands in Penobscot Bay, and enjoy lobster in the rough at Waterman's Beach. Well, we're going to talk just for a minute to Dave Cousins, who is the president of the Maine Lobstermen Association.
Yep.
How'd you get to be that?
No one else wanted the job.
Well, I'm sure that's intense modesty, but look at this man wearing a Hard Rock Cafe instead of lobster's the best thing in the world to eat, the way the rest of the folks around here do. And lobster is not just good, but they tell me it's good for you.
It is. It's excellent for you. That's what we're trying to promote it as a health food.
No more that nasty cholesterol that people talk about.
No, actually, it's got less cholesterol than skinless chicken.
Well, that gave me as good a reason as I can ever heard of, besides the fact that I like it. It's my favorite food. I'll just go on eating lobster and know that I'm getting healthier with every bite.
That's right. It's good hot food for you. That's what we want to spread the word. It's excellent for you, and it tastes great.
Sure does taste great. When they talk about it's time to bite the bullet, not as far as I'm concerned. Now it's time to bite the lobster. Tell us how many traps you have, Dave. Come on over here and talk to me for another minute.
over 1,000. Too many.
Too many. Well, if we didn't have this many, we wouldn't have these lobsters, would they?
Oh yeah, we could catch the same amount on a lot less traps.
You could?
How do you do that? Just if everyone fished less traps, we'd still catch the same amount. We'd just catch more per trap.
Well, then why don't you do it the easy way? No, Mainers like to do it the hard way. Hard shells, good lobsters. I'm going to eat mine right now. What do you say? You too?
Dive in. Tastes great, and it's good for you.
Just want to see the way we down easters, after all, I did live in Massachusetts at one point, and my husband went to the University of Maine, so we lived up here for a long time. And we get right down to basics. You can see this is partly demolished, but not fully. By the time I finish, it's going to be nothing left but a little pile of shells. I'm enjoying it, as you can tell. Andrew Wyeth, who is so well known in Chadds Pennsylvania, that he is often referred to as that young fella down the road, Andy Wyeth. But here in Maine, in Rockland, Maine, he's very much on the local scene, and there is now an exhibit of his works at the Farnsworth Museum. This is one that I've never seen before, and I thought I knew all of Andrew Wyeth's works. Study for the Revenant in 1949. It is actually his own reflection in a dusty mirror at the Olson House that became so famous in Christina's world because Christina Olson was his study for that magnificent painting. Now that we've seen this unusual painting of him, of Andrew Wyeth himself, let's move on and see what else we find. And here is a sketch for Christina's World. I'm sure you're all familiar with this, as you've seen it in the finished product. And the Olson House, and we'll go over and see that at some time, perhaps tomorrow. And this is a model of the Olson House that has become so famous in Andrew Wyeth's works. It's known as the Olson House because the Danforth owner, who was there before, is said to have daughtered out. Daughtered out means when there are no more male heirs to carry on the name. And the young Danforth woman married a sea captain by the name of Olson, has then, from then on, become known as the Olson House. And you're looking at it in scale. And we'll take a look at the real thing later on. A favorite study of Andrew Wyeth's, since he spent many, many years in this area of Rockland. And here's one in the fog and one in the snow. And he painted it over and over again, inside and outside, with great fascination. He was a friend of the Olsons, and they're immortalized forever in Andrew Wyeth's work. Well, this is rather interesting. This is very atypical Maine. It's called Cafe Miranda. We're on our way in. We hear they have no lobster, no chowder, no clams, but a very interesting menu. Let's go find out what they do have. Hey, hello, my God, whoa, what's going on over there? They've got on their makeup. Well, now let's get serious and look at the menu. I'm thinking about the fabulous bowl of meat, which is a small plate, Thai-style lime cilantro. What are you thinking of? Baked gorgonzola cheese. Well, I don't think we're going to go wrong here, guys, but we're going to sit right here at the counter at this kind of fancy-dancy diner called Cafe Miranda in, where are we? What's the name of the town? In Rockland, Maine. Very unusual, very super. What can I say? And we gotta watch them work at this. We have to sit in the cheap seats and watch them work. Well, what can you do?
Hi.
Tell me your name.
My name's Carrie Altiero. Here we are.
Where do you come from, Terry?
Oh, we live in St. George, right down the peninsula, right by
Where
Rockland.
did you come from originally?
Pennsylvania, in the heart of the coal region hills of mining area.
What was that?
Shenandoah, Pennsylvania.
Shenandoah. We come from Philadelphia. Say hi to Philadelphia.
Hi, Philadelphia.
Good.
So we buy our oil. That's on the tables from Claudio's on 9th Street.
Oh, we know, Claudio. I'll run this for him.
Please do that.
This simple-minded young man only knows how to serve little tiny portions of things. Will you look at that going up there? Well, I'm going to wait and see what I have there. Oh, my word. Seafood stew and I don't know, everything. I think I'm going to order right now. Can I do that? I'm going to have a fabulous bowl of meat. Fabulous? Good. Well, you've seen the pictures that Andrew Wyeth made of the Olson house. And now here we are at the real thing. This is the one where he spent several summers in his youth and immortalized in paint. It's in Cushing, Maine, very difficult to find. No, really, one sign back in Thomaston says it's 10 miles away, and it was a long 10 miles. Let's just put it that way. But if you turn left at the OK gas station, you'll pretty much find your way here. Well, I'm standing here on the largest of the windjammers called the Victory Chimes. It's a vessel that's, how old?
95 years old this year.
95 years old, and with me are Captain
Kip Files.
Kip Files and his partner,
Paul DeGata.
Paul DeGata from the alligator state of Florida. All right. And we're going to spend a few minutes taking a look at this gorgeous vessel that started life as a lumber ship that carried lumber on this, and then about, how many years ago did you?
1948 she turned into the passenger carrying trade, and she's been in the passenger carrying trade, well, the rest of her history, and Paul and I purchased her. It's our 5th season.
5th season, and so we're going to go take a look at her, and we're going to have some fun on board.
Let's hope. Yeah.
Let's hope. Okay, guys?
You bet.
Hi, this is Mary the magician, Mary the chef on the Victory Chimes, and you feed as many as how many people, Mary?
With a crew of about 50.
In this little kitchen, with that shipmate stove. What do you fuel that with?
It's fueled with diesel.
Oh, it is?
Uh-huh.
So you don't have to put wood in it. That's probably what it was originally, though, wasn't it?
It might have been, but it is a ship's stove.
It is a
Uh-huh,
shipmate
because
stove.
it has
Big
a-
black stove. Radiates plenty of heat in the summertime.
That's right, it does.
In the winter, it's great because it keeps you warm, but in the summer, boy, oh boy, you need your own personal air conditioner. What do you make for dinner on the Victory Chime? What do the people like best?
Well, we have lobster with an alternative at Cornish hen. This is always on Monday. And then we have Yankee pot roast, and we have ham, and we have lasagna, and we end up with turkey, a big turkey dinner.
A big turkey dinner. Well, I would think when they come down east, they would want seafood mostly, no?
Well, we have the lobster, and then we usually have clam chowder somewhere along the line, so it all comes out pretty good.
That sounds great. And you sail for how many days on a normal cruise?
The normal crew is 6 day, and we do have some free 3 day.
Sounds like a great time would be had by all. Let's go look at a little more of the ship, okay? And after Mary Walker finishes making the food, folks assemble here in the salon more often with the captain and his partner, and they sit down family style to eat that lobster, turkey, Cornish hen, whatever people are chowing down on. And I bet they really do chow down when they're at sea. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm keeping the out in the hull. I guess our most important thing is the food. We pride ourselves on what we can prepare in a galley, and we're real proud of Mary and the way she does it. We're real fortunate.
I like the way he says we. Does he ever stick his nose in the galley, Mary? No, she probably wouldn't let him.
I do, though, on the other hand. And I'd also like to point out, before Mary came here, I was 165 pounds, and you can see now that I've eaten quite well.
Well, it's a lovely, I'm sure it's going to be a lovely experience for 6 days or 3 days or however many days people spend on the Victory Chimes at sea. And when you get to be captain of a vessel like this, or a mortgage payer, this is where you get to live, in teak walls and lovely old-style lights, and just everything is very shipshape. I bet you enjoy it.
Oh, we do. It's really very special to be back here. This was the workmanship that went into this. It took a long time to get her like this, and we're real proud of it.
Yes, and Frederick Gild, one of the past masters that owned the boat for 30 years, we kind of left it the way he did it. It's kind of a tribute to him.
He had great style, great sense of the way a captain's cabin should be. A few miles inland from Rockland, the scene changes. You get away from lobster country and into a very funky part of the state called Cooper's Mill, where it's best known probably for Elmer's Barn, where there's a little bit of everything: furniture, books, plunder, tools, something for everyone. Let's go take a look and see what I have. It sure looks funky to me. There's even a totem pole and a church steeple that toppled over evidently, and some metal sculpture, and, well, you name it, an apple tree. The Royal Mess, they call it, the Registry of Deeds. I'm going to walk over and see this silly place, Elmer's Barn. We were told it was a destination, and it sure looks like it. And inside this barn, what do we find first? Right off, but Elmer. Elmer, tell us how long you've been here. How long did it take you to collect all this junk?
20 years, and it's not junk only when I'm buying.
It's junk when you're buying, and when you're selling, it's
Art.
art. You notice how he has a serious Maine accent. Art, they say up here. They forget about the R's. In any event, you've been here for 20 years. Okay. We're going to walk around and see a little bit more of it, okay? Well, I thought I had seen everything, or almost everything, but here's a seat made of moose antlers. Doesn't look too comfortable, so I'm not going to try sitting in it, but I thought you'd like to see it. There's old stoves and beds and just about everything you can think of here, jams and jellies. I think Elmer is a character and likes being one. And just in case you have everything else you need, but you do find that you have a great need for a lot of lace, you can buy it here for $5 a pound. Anybody want a pound of lace? And in case Elmer in the flesh isn't enough of a character, he has a caricature of himself done by... He said it was a friend of his. I'm not so sure. Still, in Rockland, there is this wonderful little shore village museum with the Historical Society, the Coast Guard, and the Grand Army all contributing to this Grand Army Hall in a little house not too far from the inn, the Split Rock Inn, Lime Rock Inn, where we're staying. And, well, let's wander inside. We're in a room surrounded by lighthouse lenses, the Fresnel lens, as it is called. It was used in all the lighthouses in the area, and I think there are probably more of them here than any place I've ever been anyway. And there are engine room telegraphs, all manner of wonderful artifacts related to the sea. Worth a trip up here just to see this. My word, I didn't expect this inside this little house. And here's a rotating lens, one that you can see from all sides, pretty bright, and ship's wheels and a Lyle gun, something that they would fire out to give a lifeline to a ship that was in distress. Really a fascinating collection.
Well, we hope you enjoyed your trip to Maine. We certainly did. This is Barbara Ann Rosenberg, your roving reporter, saying let's see where we go next.